Hello students, welcome to this session. In this semester you have a subject Visual Basic.NET, that is VB.NET. The textbook is Visual Basic.NET Programming and the author is Steven Hosner. Okay. So most of you must have confused VB.NET with the Visual Basic 6, that is VB. The VB.NET is upgraded version of VB. In VB.NET many more options are added which are not there in a VB. Okay. So here VB.NET is a Microsoft product which will work on .NET framework. Using VB.NET you can develop software and the Windows operating system will support the software built on .NET. Whatever software you are writing on building on .NET framework, that will be supported on Windows operating system. So now the .NET framework and common language runtime. So what is this common language runtime or CLR? So at the base of the .NET framework is the common language runtime or CLR. The CLR is the module that actually runs your VB.NET application. When you create a VB.NET application, what really happens is that your code is compiled into the CLR's intermediate language, that is MSIL or IL, intermediate language, like bytecodes in Java. So when you run the application, that IL code is translated into binary code. Your computer can understand by some special compilers built into the CLR. So compilers translate your code into something that your machine's hardware or software can deal with directly. Okay, so what is this CLR, common language runtime? That is the programs written in VB.NET, the CLR will compile it. Okay, like all your C program or CPP, before running the program, you compile it, isn't it? So compiling means it will be translated into machine code, that is zeros and ones, binary code. So whatever program you are writing on VB.NET, so that will be translated into intermediate code. Okay, so that is called IL, intermediate language, and the IL code, that is intermediate language. So in Java also source code is compiled into byte code. The Java code is called source code, and this source code is compiled into byte code, that is an intermediate code, and that byte code is compiled into that byte code is translated into the machine code, binary code. Okay, so here also the VB.NET code is compiled into an intermediate code, that is IL, and this IL is translated into binary code. So that is what common language runtime is. So this is an important question, common language runtime. Okay, so here you using .NET you can create Windows application and web application and console applications. Using .NET framework you can create Windows applications or web applications or console applications. So console applications are command line oriented applications that run in DOS Windows. That means DOS means disk operating system. That means command line oriented. So every command should be typed. So no graphical interface, like your Oracle, there is no graphical interface. What is graphical interface or GUI? That is maybe icons, menus, tools. So these are made easy to access computer, isn't it? To access a computer we need some icons or menus or tools. It will make easy to access computer. But the command line means everything should be written in a command prompt, like Oracle, how you have done Oracle or any other command line languages. Okay, so here this console application is the command line oriented application, and one more is Windows application. That is what your VB.NET is. In .NET framework you can use Windows application or web application or console application. Console application is command line, and Windows application, that means that is your VB.NET Windows, that means a standalone application. That means that is not connected to any network. And one more is where you can create even web applications also in .NET, that means web applications with the user interfaces. These applications are based on ASP.NET. For that separate language, ASP.NET, that is active server pages, and you can view these applications in any browser. The applications will tailor itself to browser's capabilities. That means it will synchronize or adjust itself to browser's capabilities, because web applications are accessed throughout the browsers, or from any browser you can access these web applications. That means written in ASP.NET. But VB.NET is Windows application that is not accessed by any web browser, and so it is called Windows application or standalone application that is not connected to any network. But web-based applications are connected to network. That means you can host it to web. So these applications are accessed from any browser. Okay. So you can build web applications that use standard HTML controls or new server controls that are handled on the web server. So here for web applications you will have to write the code in HTML or XML. Okay. So next one, the .NET framework class library. So the class library is the major part of .NET framework. The class library holds the immense amount of pre-written code that all the applications you create with Visual Basic or Visual C++ or C# and other Visual Studios languages build on. So that means using this .NET framework, see, this .NET framework offers many languages. That means maybe Visual Basic or Visual C++, that is, or C# for ASP.NET. But here we are using only Visual Basic of .NET framework. Okay, you can use other languages also like Visual C++ or C#, but in this semester we will have to use only Visual Basic. Okay, so the class library gives your program the support it needs. For example, your program may create several forms, and as there is a class for forms in the class library, your program doesn't have to perform all the details of creating those forms from scratch. All your code has to do declare a new form, and the CLR compilers can get the actual code that supports forms from the .NET framework class library. In this way, your programs can be very small compared to earlier Windows applications, because you can rely on the millions of lines of code already written in the class library. Not everything has to be written in your applications exe file. Okay, so what is this class library? Already class library, for example, in C or CPP programs, in the beginning you add #include stdio.h, isn't it? Why this stdio? For input output, for writing printf and scanf. If you don't add stdio, then it will not understand what is printf, what is scanf, isn't it? And like that you have used math.h for mathematical functions. If you just type square root function, it will get you the square root of the given number, isn't it? No need to, you don't have to write code for the square root, so it will make easy. Here these functions will be made, your programming will be made easy, isn't it? So like that, in VB.NET, for creating forms, you will have to add the class library like system.windows.forms. So this system.windows.forms is a class library. A typical form has a text box, label, button, etc. So you must have seen some forms while filling any application form. In application form, first it will be like name and any gender, date of birth, and at last you will have to click a submit button. So here in the typical form we have the text box, isn't it? For entering your name there is a text box and some label will be there, and for submitting button will be there. So a form contains all these controls, like text box, label, button, etc. But without adding this form class library, these controls will not work. Okay, so that is what a class library is. Okay, So all these assumes that you are working on a machine that has the .NET framework, and therefore the CLR and the .NET framework class library installed. So the code for all elements we use in the VB.NET application, forms, buttons, menus and all the rest all comes from the class library. Okay. So as mentioned, the .NET framework organizes its classes into namespaces. So for example, the .NET framework includes the namespaces Microsoft Visual Basic, Microsoft JScript, Microsoft C Sharp, like that. JScript, JavaScript and C Sharp, but here we use just a Microsoft Visual Basic. Okay. So the system namespaces contain relatively few classes. The real way will interact with the .NET framework class library in this book is through the system namespaces. You can't build a VB.NET application without using classes from the .NET system namespace, as and when you want to use a Windows form, for example, you must use the system.windows.forms.form class. So a button in a Windows form comes from the system.windows.forms.button class, and okay, like that. So for example, in the forms you are using a you may be using text box or button or a label, like that. But so here also a button in a Windows form comes from system.windows.forms.button. So a text box, system.windows.forms.text box. So separate classes are there. Okay. So there are some namespaces. This is an important question. Okay. So first one is system. So this system includes essential classes and base classes that define commonly used data types, events and event handlers, interfaces, attributes, exceptions and so on. So if you include this system, okay, this system library, it allows you to use data types in this program. Which one? In VB.NET program, it will allow you to use some data types and events and event handlers. So events may be there, some mouse events. Some the examples of mouse event is clicking, click or double click. Clicking, a click event will select icon, and double click event will open that icon, isn't it? Open that icon or open that folder, isn't it? So next one, the system.collections. So these collections of objects such as list, queues, arrays, hash tables and dictionaries. If you want to use list, queues, it will come in the data structures. These are data structures. Which one? List, queues, arrays and hash tables for algorithms. And if you are using dictionaries, you will have to include the class library, that is system.collections. Okay. So next one, system.data. So it includes classes that make up ADO.NET. ADO.NET lets you build data handling components that manage data from multiple distributed data sources. So ADO.NET is also a language like VB.NET, and this system.data, it will allow you to add some data that manage data from multiple distributed data sources. Distributed data means distributed system is computers which are on network. Okay. So distributed data means data on different networked computers. Okay. So here one more, that is system.data.sql client. SQL client, that means if you are using the SQL, you will have to add system.data.sql client. Okay. So next one, system.diagnostic. So it will allow you to debug your application, and it will include the code to start system processes, read and write to event logs and monitor system performance. So this diagnostic is to for debugging your application. So next one is system.drawing. So it provides access to graphics packages that give you access to drawing methods. So for drawing purpose, you will have to use the system.drawing library. Okay. There is one more, system.drawing 2D. So it is for some advanced 2D pictures. That means it includes classes that support as advanced two-dimensional and vector graphics. Vector graphics means some drawing. Vector is a drawing line or rectangle or triangle. Okay, so if you add this drawing 2D class, so it will allow you to do all these operations like 2D drawing. And next one, the system.drawing.imaging. It includes classes that support advanced imaging for pictures. So next one is system.drawing.printing. So it allows you to includes classes that allow you to customize and perform printing. For printing also you will have to include a system library, that is system.drawing.printing. And next one, system.drawing.text. So it includes classes that support advanced typography operations. That means for typing, the classes in this namespace allow users to create and use collections of fonts. There are, and if you are using text means you will have to use some fonts, so it will give you variety of fonts. And globalization, it includes classes that specify culture related information, including the language, the country, region, calendars, the format patterns for dates, currency and numbers, and so on. Okay, so this globalization means the date format of global date format, or country, or the country, currency or region, calendars, the format patterns of dates and so on. Okay, so next one, system.io. It includes types that support reading from and writing to both data streams and files. So reading from means reading from files and writing to files. So it will allow. IO means input output. So system.net provides an interface to many of the protocols used on the internet. So if you add this system.net, it will allow you to use some protocols. Protocol means a set of rules to communicate over network, internet. Okay, so next one, system.web.services. It includes classes that let you build and use web services, programmable entities on web server, and the code can communicate with using standard internet protocol. So this web services, it will allow you to use some web services like email or FTP or www. Okay, system.windows.forms, already you know this. If you add this namespace, it includes classes for creating Windows based forms that make use of user interface controls and other features available in the Windows operating system. Okay, so system.windows.forms, it will allow you to create a form in this VB.NET. In the that means form with all the controls, a text box or a button or any other control. Okay, and there is the next one more, that is system.xml. It includes classes that support processing of XML. XML means extensible markup language. Is a slight different from HTML, so it will allow you to use this XML also. Okay.